where Alec Baldwin could be criminally charged in the shooting on the Rust movie set that killed cinematographer Halyna Hutchins. This is according to the Santa Fe district attorney.
Criminal charges could be announced tomorrow or as soon as tomorrow for the shooting death of cinematographer Halyna Hutchins on the New Mexico set of the movie Rust.
Alec Baldwin could be one of the 4 people officially charged. The Santa Fe County District Attorney recently requested the New Mexico Board of Finance for more than $600,000 to prosecute as many as 4 people for criminal and homicide charges.
Let me tell you what the possible charges could be. So this is CBS News. They say up to 4 people, including Alec Baldwin, may end up facing charges in Rust shooting. District attorney says in request for more money. So it seems like in this jurisdiction, if the district attorney's office wants to conduct some type of criminal trial and they need funds, they go to the state and request it, and then they explain, hey, this is what we want the funds for, and the state either approves or denies those funds. So here it seems like the district attorney is planning on bringing some criminal charges against some of the participants, and they need the money to do it. Now, one of the more interesting parts about this is that if you're the DA, you know that you're going up against some really high profile, high money attorneys, because Alec Baldwin and all these people in the movie industry had that type of money. So I think they're building up a war chest, they want to build up at least a $600,000 war chest to fight this battle. Let's see what they're saying at CBS. The district attorney in New Mexico said that she could be close to charging up to 4 people, including actor Alec Baldwin, in the Rust film set shooting that occurred in Santa Fe on October 21st, 2021. Wow, that was almost a year ago. So you see sometimes how long these cases take to churn, right? What evidence have they developed within that year to say, hey, we may want to charge these people with whatever crimes, right? So, we're talking about something that actually happened a year ago. And it's funny because I didn't even realize how long ago the Rust shooting was. But, I'm filming this video at the beginning of October, end of September, and it just is like, it's surprising. The wheels of justice really turn slow. The first judicial district attorney made an emergency funding request for $635,000 to continue to fund the investigation of the high-profile case. Now, the district attorney's office says the funds could go to new attorney support staff like paralegals, as well as experts who could aid in investigations like firearms experts, the armorer who has worked on movies before, and potentially a movie set safety expert. She also requested a public information officer because her office is overwhelmed with media attention over the case. Now, all this seems reasonable because, again, if you're going to charge Alec Baldwin and crew with the crime, then you're going to have a media person because people are going to want to know what's going on in this case. And if it does go to trial, you may have a very explosive case. This may be the case that turns this pretty much obscure ADA or a district attorney in Santa Fe into a national star. So you got to kind of prepare for all of this. So even with all that, as you can see, the Board of Finance approved only $317,000, about half of what she was asking for. Now, there are a couple of interesting things, I think, about this particular case. Number one, Alec Baldwin says he didn't actually pull the trigger. He pulled the hammer back, but then you have the FBI report that kind of says he did pull the trigger. And just looking at the case, I want to give you guys my thoughts on what the charges or possible charges could be for all these people involved. So we're really talking about, from my perspective, 3 main people. Alec Baldwin, the person who was holding the firearm. You have the AD, that's the person who handed Alec Baldwin the gun and said the gun was safe. And then you have the armorer who was in charge of gun safety on the set. So we're looking at possibly involuntary manslaughter charges. Now, people will be like, Nate, now you're getting into the law. Voluntary manslaughter, involuntary manslaughter, murder, what's the difference? So let me give you a quick and dirty legal explanation on the difference. So if you kill somebody and intend to kill that person or intend to seriously injure that person, you're talking about murder, right? That's murder. It's generally called malice aforethought. I want to hurt this person. You could do it either recklessly, driving a car through a crowd with your eyes closed. That's murder. And you can do it intentionally, where you go and you pull a gun and shoot somebody, right? That would be an intentional murder. So those are your murder statutes. It really depends on the intent of the person. Then you have your manslaughter statutes. Now, involuntary manslaughter, which is rarely charged, to be honest with you, that's your heat of passion. That's when, for instance, if I walk in and I see my wife sleeping with another man and we get into a battle and I kill that person, that's the heat of passion. that essentially would be voluntary manslaughter. Or if I get into an argument in the street and we get into mutual combat and I kill the person, that again would be voluntary manslaughter. It's still you're intending to hurt the person, but because of the heightened situation and the fact that you were provoked, the level of culpability from voluntary manslaughter is less than for, let's say, either murder 2 or first degree murder, which we talked about earlier. Now, the last thing which I think they're going to be charged with is involuntary manslaughter. Now, involuntary manslaughter, that's your classic drunk driving, where someone gets behind the wheel of a car, drinks, and drives and kills somebody. That's usually involuntary manslaughter. And the key difference with involuntary manslaughter is that the person is just being so reckless, but not in a way that's intending to kill someone. Let me give you an example other than the drunk driving. Let's say you're a pharmacist and you're not licensed. So you open up a pharmacy and you're not licensed, and someone is prescribed prescription drugs. You fill the order and give it to the person, and the person dies. Well, that would be considered involuntary manslaughter. You didn't intend to kill the person. Matter of fact, you intended to be a pharmacist and give them the medication. But the fact that you weren't licensed and the fact that you filled the prescription, that gets you involuntary manslaughter. Another example, if you're texting while driving and you hit and kill someone. Since texting is illegal, you didn't have the intent to kill anybody, but when you do, that's generally involuntary manslaughter. And obviously things like practicing medicine without a license. Like any time that you're doing something that is technically illegal, but you don't have the intent to kill someone, but someone does die, that's going to get you involuntary manslaughter. So now, in this particular case, that is where I think the government is going to go. They're going to say this is involuntary manslaughter. There's an element of criminal negligence. And what that means is that there are protocols on how guns should be handled on sets, especially with live ammunition. They're saying the negligence of maybe, let's say, the armorer. The fact that she didn't check the gun the right way and did the right things, or she was the one that brought the live ammo to the set, right? If she's the one that brought the live ammo to the set, that could lead to an involuntary manslaughter charge, even though she didn't pull the trigger. It's kind of like, well, you brought the live ammo to the set and didn't tell people, and someone died. You also can have the AD, the person who was acting as the armorer while the armorer was doing something else. He could actually be charged with involuntary manslaughter because he was the one who handed Alec Baldwin the loaded firearm and said it was clear, right? So that also could get him in trouble for involuntary manslaughter. And then last but not least, you also have Alec Baldwin himself, the person who pulled the trigger. And that in of itself could lead him to a charge of involuntary manslaughter. And in his case, the thinking was that, hey, if someone hands you a gun, do you just point it at people and start pulling back the hammer? Or do you inspect the firearm and make sure it's good and then go about your business? So the fact the government may be saying that, hey, it was his responsibility to check that firearm and it was reckless that he didn't. And by pointing the gun and doing all this other stuff and the gun going off, it was actually his fault. And that could lead to involuntary manslaughter. But Alec Baldwin, I think, has the best defense of them all, even if he is charged. And I think his defense is going to be that he didn't have the requisite criminal negligence to actually commit the crime of involuntary manslaughter, right? Let me take it back to another example where I think it's a little bit easier to see. Let's say Alec Baldwin goes to a pharmacist, and that pharmacist is not licensed, right, to fill a prescription for his wife. He goes and fills that prescription, right? He says, here, takes it to this pharmacist, but he doesn't know this pharmacist is not licensed, right? He's just going to the store and gives him the prescription. The pharmacist fills the prescription with the wrong medication. Alec Baldwin then takes the medication to his wife and gives her one of the pills, and she passes away. So now you got the pharmacist, right? He's don't got a license. He filled the wrong prescription, involuntary manslaughter. But what about Alec Baldwin? He's the one that actually delivered the medication to her and administered the drug. Can he be charged with involuntary manslaughter? That is where I think you may have a problem with criminal intent, because if he knew the person wasn't licensed, you got him. But unless you can show that he knew that person wasn't licensed, wasn't responsible for dispensing medication in this way, then you may have an argument. And I think that's kind of where this prosecution is going, is they're essentially saying that, hey, you're supposed to only deal with the armorer. This other guy, the AD, was not the person who was supposed to be handling weapons. And that fact that you knew this wasn't the guy Just like in the other example, if he knew that pharmacist wasn't a pharmacist, that somehow gives him criminal responsibility. But we don't know for sure. We don't know for sure. There may be other charges, like maybe lesser charges, like, the mishandling of a firearm or something like that. But right now, if we're talking about murder charges or some manslaughter charges, I think involuntary manslaughter is probably the best the government is going to get. And I think if you're going to get Alec Baldwin, it seems to me they're going to be going some type of theory like that, where Alec should have known that this gun should have been checked and didn't do it anyway. But we'll see. Now, in addition to the criminal investigation, there are several other lawsuits over the shooting. Hutchinson's family is suing Baldwin and the movie producers for wrongful death. The armor on the film, Hannah Gutierrez-Reed, has sued the ammunition and gun supplier for the movie, accusing him and his company of providing a combination of dummy and live rounds. Baldwin, Reed, and the assistant director, David Hall, who handed Baldwin the gun, are also being sued for alleged negligence by a dozen crew members. So I think obviously the negligence claims are gold, right? It's like you got negligence in spades. So they're going to have to pay out of pocket. It's just the criminal aspect is going to be iffy. So let me know what you think in the comment section. Do you think they can get Alec Baldwin on this theory of involuntary manslaughter that I've presented to you? Or do you think that they're probably going to get him on something less? I think the civil lawsuits are pretty clear, but I think the criminal liability is going to be interesting. I think the AD's in trouble, and I think the armor is in trouble, but we'll see how things work out. Let me know how you feel in the comment section. My name is Nate the Lawyer. I'll see you next one. Peace.